Hi, I'm Dr. Vanessa Collingridge, and I'm more than just a TV presenter.
Hi Ness, thank you so
Hello.
much for coming on to my little YouTube channel. I know you're very busy, so thank you so much.
You are very welcome. It's a pleasure to be with you, Mimi.
Let's explore a little bit about what you said. I am more than just a TV presenter, broadcaster. How do you mean?
Well, although that was my main career, I've always run other things alongside. I've always run the academic research alongside that, and also the coaching side as well. So I've always done impact coaching, public speaking, the sort of kind of soft communication skills that really enable you to get your message across, but also to understand the needs of the audience and work with an audience as well. And I think they're skills that are often not very much thought of, perhaps not thought of as much as we should be thinking about them.
So much to ask you about, along those lines. But let's just kind of turn back the clock to where we first met. And I believe that's 2012, 2013, and we met in Hong Kong. So I was working for the University of Oxford Development Office at the time, and we were trying to organize an exhibition for the Ming Dynasty map, the Seldom map, to come out to Hong Kong and to Beijing. So I was working on the kind of logistics Chinese side, while we invited you to do the English part of the kind of feature article on the South China Morning Post magazine. I think I still have it. And also work your magic with the new built Hong Kong Maritime Museum. Do you remember that?
I remember it well, yes, because I was working at the time for the South China Morning Post on as a kind of science features journalist, writing stories for them. And I think we got the cover story with the Seldom map.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure we got the cover story, which is pretty impressive for the equivalent of the Sunday magazine over there.
Yeah.
But I was also working as a broadcast journalist, making a weekly radio series called something.
Yeah, I think it's in RTHK and
RTHK,
yeah.
That's right. Yes, that was the BBC equivalent over there, the broadcaster. The Big Picture, wasn't it? Something like
yes.
that.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic opportunity, and it did allow me to pick up stories. Like when you came saying, "Oh, we're going to be doing the Seldom one," I was able to kind of hoover up all this fantastic information, do loads of research. And of course, being a geographer, it was right up my street anyway. So I absolutely love that. I do a little lecture series on it nowadays for anyone that wants it. And it's such good fun. It's a really interesting map in its day, and the research that went into it was fabulous.
You were the very few people that I know who studied geography at university level, let alone using that in your career. So how did that kind of interest you as a kid? What were you like?
I was the kind of, I presume, very annoying, hyperactive kid. I was always falling in puddles, falling at trees, getting muddy. Always loved being off on my bike. Where I lived at the edge of Bisley Common when I was growing up, so I would spend days just cycling around or walking on the common. You know, you take pack lunch with you, and you disappear all day. You come home when your welly boots are full of water, or you're covered in mud, or you're starving hungry, or you're really badly bleeding after inevitable accidents or whatever. But yeah, I was very much a kind of hyperactive tomboy. I loved exploration. I loved adventure. My nickname at school was Duracell, because I was hyperactive with a copper-coloured top.
Like the rabbit.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose I loved learning stuff. I was really curious. I was really adventurous, and probably a right pain in the backside, actually. But I wasn't very good at sitting down, being a good, dutiful daughter, I don't think.
Do you have siblings?
That was fine. My dad had done a lot of travelling, so he kind of used to regale me with his stories of his travels and explorations and adventures. And I think that just seeped into my soul, and it was inevitable really that I would end up doing lots and lots of adventures and explorations of my own.
Yeah. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, so I'm the youngest of 5 children, which is why I'm so shy and retiring. Yes. So yeah, we come from obviously a very big family. I'm the youngest, which means I didn't really grow up with a lot of respect for authority, because my big brothers and sisters, they're much older than me, the top 3, and then my next sister is 2 years older than me. But yeah, my big brother's like 10 or so years older than me. So I was never scared of talking to grown-ups because, well, I can't really remember my big brother really living at home. He left when I was about 7 or 8. So yeah, I think that as well just introduced to me a healthy lack of authority and an ability to question people who are naturally older and wiser than myself.
I think the difficulty in school is for us to appreciate that geography is also linked to history. You know, we often learn about geography as coastlines, as the different types of clouds, but we don't really think about how, you know, like the Selden map, how maps come about, how it relates to stories, how it relates to kind of centuries and eras. Is that why you chose to study that at Oxford?
Yeah, I had a real dilemma because naturally my best subject growing up was always English. I did huge amounts of creative writing. I wrote stories and poems and wrote magazines and edited magazines, and I was always very much literature based. Yeah. But I was given really good advice by my English teacher, who I think knew me probably better than I knew myself. And he said, no. Don't read English at university. Find something that you are really curious about and passionate about. And so that just allowed me to then connect with that other part of me that wanted to be outdoors, wanted to get my boots muddy. I'm not really a very dutiful sort of note. I take a lot of notes, but I'm not somebody who would naturally be a sit down, spend hours and hours a day reading books. That's not who I am. I can do that for a certain amount of time, but you know, as was evident with my Captain Cook research later on, after, you know, quite a few months of sitting in libraries, I then signed on as a crew member for the Endeavour. I want to live the experience. I don't just want to read about it. So yeah, that's why I ended up doing geography rather than English. But I do sometimes think, oh gosh, perhaps it would be an easier life going to read English and having a much more normal existence, but I don't think I really do normal. So.
Yeah. I know. It doesn't sound like you at all. Right, so this is according to Wikipedia. After graduating, Collingridge moved immediately to a career in television, first as a question checker on game shows. Is that correct?
That's true. So when I was getting ready, when I was sitting my finals, I had in my mind that I would go. I was offered a PhD at Oxford, but I wanted to kind of ring the changes and move on. So I applied to do one at Newcastle, University of Newcastle. And I did very well in my degree, and I thought all was in train to go and do this PhD. And suddenly I had a letter through from the funding council saying my application had been rejected. And so I rang them up and said, hello, is there some mistake here? Because I'd got a first, and it's like, she said, perhaps you're not qualified enough. I'm like, I don't know how I could have got a better qualification. And she eventually agreed, the woman on the phone eventually agreed to go away and look at the reason. And it turned out that they'd forgotten to fill in some of the paperwork at the university. So at the University of Newcastle. So I didn't get my PhD. But that meant that I literally had about 2 or 3 weeks to rethink my future. You know, in 2 or 3 weeks, I was due to move to Newcastle. So I had to think on my feet, and I think that's a really useful experience, is how do you react to rapidly changing circumstances? Luckily, I love that kind of environment. I'm really happy in a very fluid scenario. So I was like, well, what am I good at? I'm good at researching. I'm good at telling stories. And I'd always done lots of acting and drama as a child. I was in the local youth theatre, and we did lots of plays and things like this. So I thought, well, TV or working in magazines, something that's very picture oriented, because I've always loved sort of pictures as well as text. And so I applied to STV, Scottish Television, which was my local. I'd moved up to Glasgow by then. That was my local TV station. I applied for that and was given a job checking the questions, or kind of scripting the questions for Wheel of Fortune, because having obviously a first-class degree at Oxford, I knew how to use a reference library. And in those days, before Google and all of that, it was back in the dinosaurs days of card indexes and libraries. Remember those? And so I was able to use a reference library, and we had to check that the right answers were right and the wrong answers were wrong, and really nail this down, because obviously you don't want to get that wrong on a national game show. So yes, so yes, it's a fast and furious way to learn. You don't make mistakes in that role.
So kind of so much to unpack there, from the mistakes that Newcastle made. First question is, how, retrospectively we can all laugh about that, but at the time, how did you feel about this impossibility? I mean, like you said, it's impossible for you to have a first-class education and then suddenly, out of no fault of your own, have this. What goes through your mind?
Well, you might have noticed the red hair. You never tell me what I can and can't do. So when somebody at the other end of the phone says, well, you're just not qualified enough, you can't do this, I'm like, well, I'm going to do something else then. I'm still going to do what I want to do. And I had applied was offered other ones locally. I applied to a few Scottish universities, but in the end, the STV job came up. So I did that. And then very quickly, I've been lucky. See, I've always been mentored by fantastic people, normally fantastic women, one or two men, but essentially I've been so lucky that other women have picked me up and said, right, you don't know it yet, but you're going to do this. And I was really lucky at Scottish television. I was mentored by a fabulous entertainment producer called Anne Mason, who I think I'd failed the typing test to even get in. It's like, we didn't really type, if you were academic, you didn't get sent to do your typing qualifications. So Anne said, you will resit your typing qualification for STV and you will pass next time. So I went away and duly did pass and got the job. Then she passed me on to another woman called Erin Arena, who worked in education, documentaries and features, which of course is my absolute home. I knew as soon as I moved into that department that was where I was going to be probably for much of the rest of my life, which is how it's turned out. So again, you don't do I'm quite stroppy in terms of like, nobody tells me what I can and can't do. Always been a lifelong feminist. I have lots of energy. So even if things are a little bit difficult, I will make sure that they happen. So for example, with my undergraduate degree, I had viral encephalitis and was literally signed off in hospital 5 weeks before my finals. And I was like, well, I'd had to give up rowing in the blue boat, which was the other thing I really wanted to do. So the only other thing left to do was to get first. So that's what I focused on. So if I want to do something, nothing kind of gets in my way. Yeah, but I do love to push boundaries. I love to push myself. I love to try different things. And I don't like people telling me that I can't do stuff because I'm too young, I'm too female, I'm too loud or bouncy or whatever people used to say back in the day. So yeah, but if I don't like roadblocks, I do like to find a way around a roadblock. That's the challenge, isn't it?
Do you think about what your peers think about you? If you've already told everyone, well, I'm going to do a PhD, and then suddenly you go, no PhD, I'm going to be, a fact checker at a TV show.
I think we all do to a certain extent, but I've always had this drive for the quirky, I suppose. I don't tread the well-trodden path. If there is an obvious route to something, I will always find a more interesting route to it. And I've always known that I would have that kind of life. I've got a real magpie brain. I have a million thoughts every second, and I don't really do straight lines.
Have you analysed how did that come about? Is it a family thing, or was it being the youngest child?
I suspect that's got a lot to do with it. As I say, I'm not great with authority. I would like to think I'm respectful, but I won't do what I'm told if I don't believe it's the right thing to do. So yes, I've always, I suppose, followed my own path and not really, I would never hurt anyone deliberately. I would never kind of climb over other people to do that. I have very strong ethics on that side of things. But I don't like people putting up barriers and making assumptions about what I can and can't do. As I said, I can't remember ever not being very kind of feministically aware. I had this real thing that I suppose being a tomboy, it's like, you're not going to say I can't do that because I'm a girl. It's just not happening. So I would always pursue my own path, and I never really behaved like other people. Like for my undergraduate dissertation, most people did kind of shopping patterns in my hometown kind of thing. I went to Mexico and studied fertility regulation amongst the Zapotec Indians. You know, I just go and do something a little bit random, but really fun and exciting. And, you know, that was the most obscure, esoteric topic. I have used the knowledge and experience of that so much throughout the rest of my life. And that's why I think if you have a passion, you follow it because it's in your DNA, and then you get to be the complete person that you need to be, because you're doing what you want to do. I can't think of anything worse than me having to do a desk job. It would not work. I would drive everyone around me mad, and I would drive myself mad. So I'm safer probably pinging around doing lots of random things, really.
Right. So I found a clip of you on YouTube in a documentary called Scotland Revealed.
I remember that one. I loved that series. It was fabulous. Basically, it was me going around Scotland, telling the stories, the kind of historical stories, the geographical stories of how Scotland came to be in terms of its people and the landscape.
Tasting whiskey.
Yes, yeah. And, you know, we were climbing up mountains. I was climbing up mountains with tripods on my shoulder and stuff. I think everyone thinks you have a very glam life in television, not outdoors on location. You don't. Well, I suppose some people might, but not in my kind of field. But again, you were talking earlier about geography, and geographers love that ecosystems approach where everything is connected. And Scotland Revealed was a series that really did enable me to connect time, space, scale, human beings, and plate tectonics. You know, everything is there.
Right. We're going to see a little clip of that. And we'll come back.
The River Dee not only looks stunning, I reckon it's one of Scotland's star attractions for a whole string of reasons. You ready for this? I've got the hat, I've got my safety specs, got the life jacket, got the waders. What's the one thing I've forgotten? Right, so what's this then? Duty paid warehouse number one.
Duty paid warehouse number one, yes.
This is where it all happens. Stuart's twisted my arm to sample some of the distillery's finest malts. Thank you.
So we'll start with the 12-year-old. Wasn't that a lovely sound?
Good sound.
There we are.
Even better sound.
I don't actually enjoy watching myself on television, but I love making the programmes. So I was never somebody that was always editing myself into my TV programmes. I tended to edit myself out and try to focus more on the interviewee always. But no, it was a lovely series to work on. I'm still in close contact with the people I worked with on that series. And it was fabulous. We went back and did one in winter afterwards as a sequel, and that was really good fun.
How did you pick these projects, or was it like actors and actresses saying that sometimes you go for auditions and people pick you?
Normally things would come to me. I would occasionally audition for stuff, but normally I've always been really lucky in my career that because I suppose I was known as a bit of a kind of martini girl, you know, anytime, any place, anywhere, in terms of the work that I was doing, I would always say yes to anything that was remotely interesting. So really lovely, adventure-y, outdoorsy programs and projects came to me. So most of the time I was approached, or my agent would be approached, and I'd get these, or occasionally with my space. When I did the filming on the Star City cosmonaut training, the Yuri Gagarin cosmonaut training program, I was sitting at my kitchen table researching another program altogether, and the phone rang, and this woman said, "Hi Ness, you don't know me, but I'm the wife of a guy I also worked with at the time. And she said, how would you like to go up into space? And it was a Tuesday morning at about 10 o'clock. And I was like, yes.
Is this a dream?
Thank you very much. And it turned out the poor guy who was meant to do it had broken his arm and couldn't do this very athletic training and filming that we needed to do. And so I ended up being the first British tourist to go and train to be a cosmonaut at Star City in Russia. So again, these opportunities come your way if you have a very kind of open mindset and a reputation for just basically saying, let's give it a try. So yes, lots of opportunities came my way, like the Antarctic series as well. You know, one of the other really good topics that I did, that literally I had a phone call, I can't remember what day of the week it was, but I was in my office and a producer friend of mine rang up and said, right, you know, we're going down to the Antarctic.
I've got a few pictures of that I can show. That is really interesting. I mean, what kind of comments or kind of the negative side of things? I mean, did you have to deal with disappointment? Were there projects where you really desperately think, I want to do that, and also it's a shoe-in?
I don't think I would ever think that I was going to be a shoe-in. I'm always somebody who thinks something's going to go wrong, so I need to kind of prepare. Right. So I always over-deliver, if you know what I mean. So I wouldn't say overconfidence has ever massively been a problem of mine. It's completely the opposite, actually. I have enthusiasm, but not confidence, let's say it that way. So there have been a few jobs that I would have loved to have got. I never boarded or interviewed to be a Blue Peter presenter, but growing up, that was the job that I wanted to do. I wanted to work on Tomorrow's World, which was the science series when I was growing up. And again, never got the opportunity to board for that either. I narrowly missed out. I came second as a morning TV presenter. That was a shame, but that would have taken me in studio. And I'm not sure that being in studio was really where I was going to be in terms of, as I say, my DNA and who I am. So probably it worked out for the best, but that would have been a really interesting other direction to go in. But I think I was probably always destined to be somebody who was out on location doing either investigative current affairs or documentaries, history programs, geography, natural environment programs. As I say, I'm the kind of person, journalistically or just as a personality in myself, who needs to get my boots dirty. I'm not really a sit on an elegant sofa and go, yes, how interesting. It's, you know, I would say I would come out with some shocking comment or something. Probably.
And what kind of skill set do you have to acquire before you actually started your own production company, Monster Media?
Well, that was literally because I got a job, and again, one of these kind of serendip. My whole career has been a string of coincidences and serendipitous moments. So I was unemployed at the time, and I was sitting in an edit suite. I'd written to literally every single producer in Scotland saying, can I come and sit in with you? Can I come and sit in and watch an edit with you? I'd had, a million ding letters, and I'd had 2 replies out the whole of Scotland. One saying, I'd have loved to have had you, but sadly I've gone out of business. And then there was a guy called John Adams who said, yes, come and I'm editing 40 minutes or something for the BBC. Or was it BBC? Anyway, yeah, it was BBC. I'm editing a 40 minutes was the name of the strand. Come and sit in with me. And while I was sitting in there, we went out for lunch. We went to the canteen, and in the canteen I met a woman. Now, bizarrely, she was also a redhead, and we were chatting, but I don't think we were chatting about anything particularly sort of serious or anything. And literally about 3 months later, I had a phone call saying, hi, you probably won't remember who I am, but I sat and had coffee with you at the BBC once. How would you like to be a weather presenter? So I was like, okay, not telling them that I got 1.5% in my climatology and meteorology exam at Oxford. I was rubbish at it. But anyway, I went along to that interview and got the job. I think probably because I ended up wearing the same outfit as this woman the second time we met. It was very strange. But I couldn't, those days, the BBC weren't taking on full-time members of staff. They were only taking on freelancers. Therefore, I had to therefore be freelance, which meant setting up a limited company and doing all of this. So again, it wasn't the path that I chose, but you're like, okay, then it probably suits me better to run my own company. I don't think I would be a very good employee. As I say, I don't tend to do what I'm told very often. And I don't follow a very set path of other people's instructions terribly well. So actually running my own company turned out to be perfect, because it's enabled me to do the writing, the broadcasting, the coaching, the lecturing, and all these other things that I've done, while also combining it with, you know, having millions of children and animals and living in the countryside and essentially kind of running my garden and my beloved veg patch. So, you know, I was quite bizarre back in the 90s. I decided, I only want to work, well, I was working really, really long days. I decided on the days I was in the office, I only wanted to work 4 days. And on the 5th day, while all my other colleagues were pursuing kind of very ambitious, sensible careers, I decided I wanted to learn to horse jump. So I went horse jumping on a Friday. And I didn't mean to even learn to horse jump. It's just I was on a horse. The instructor had a phone call, turned her back, and while she was turning her back, the horse started going over these jumps, and they got bigger and bigger. And she said she turned around to see me hunker down and jump over this enormous, I'd never jumped before. So she was like, you're going to be a horse jumper. So again, lots of my life is just going with the flow and seizing opportunities as they come along. And I need a lot of stimulation, intellectually, mentally, physically. So that to me is just perfect. Just, as I say, seeing an opportunity and seizing it.
So like you said, that sounded like both kind of conscious and subconscious decision to try new things. Were there moments when you think, oh, maybe I should just slow down?
I think some of it. I mentioned earlier that I was very ill at university. I had viral encephalitis. And so I had to take a year off, and I was literally unconscious pretty much for that whole year. I was paralyzed and I was in quite a bad way. And I think the lust for life coming back from something, I went from being like a hyperactive child and teenager to being bedridden. You know, I rode in the first day, I did land training, I was cycling all over the place, going hiking expeditions, all of this kind of stuff. And then suddenly you're bedridden. So I think the reaction to that is just squeeze every drop out of life and what it offers. And you know, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth either. So I wasn't from a posh family. I didn't come from a very kind of moneyed background. So if I wanted to do stuff, I had to work to make it happen. But, you know, as I said, I've always been very lucky. I've always met people who have seen something in me that they want to develop. So it hasn't just been a solo journey by any stretch. It's been a kind of team effort to get me where I am today.